The relentless work of the genealogy team had finally delivered a name: Joseph James DeAngelo. The revelation was shocking, not because the man was extraordinary, but because he was so crushingly ordinary. A 72-year-old former police officer, dishonorably discharged for shoplifting in 1979, living in a modest, well-kept home in Citrus Heights, just minutes from where the first Sacramento attacks occurred. He was a husband, a father, a grandfather. He was a creature of habit, living the quiet, routine life that his victims had been robbed of. The investigation shifted to intense physical surveillance. For several agonizing days, detectives watched DeAngelo, a man who had successfully evaded them for over 4 decades. They needed absolute, ironclad confirmation, not just a distant cousin match, but a direct DNA link. They needed a sample of abandoned DNA. Under the cover of darkness, in the early hours of the morning, investigators stalked him. A team watched as DeAngelo took out his trash. Another team watched as he left a tissue inside a parked car. Finally, a sample was successfully and discreetly retrieved from a discarded item in his yard. The sample was rushed to the lab. The atmosphere was a volatile mix of hope and terror. This was the moment. Decades of work, years of fear, the lives of countless victims, all hinged on the alignment of 2 genetic profiles: the phantom killers from 1978 and the man who was now raking leaves in his front yard. The results arrived. The match was definitive. It was him. The Visalia ransack, the East Area Rapist, the original Night Stalker, the Golden State Killer. All of them were Joseph James DeAngelo. On April 24, 2018, nearly 40 years after his trail went cold, police descended on the quiet suburban street. DeAngelo was outside, near his house. The body camera footage, which would later be released, showed a frail, confused, elderly man blinking into the daylight, far removed from the cold, methodical predator who had once slipped through windows and terrorized communities. The arrest itself lacked the drama of the 1970s attacks. It ended not with a struggle, but with a quiet, mundane surrender. The monster that had filled every home in California with dread was finally caught because he used a public road and left behind a single, discarded piece of himself. The trial was not a fight over guilt. The DNA was undeniable, but a reckoning. The surviving victims and the families of the deceased finally had a face, a name, and a chance to confront the shadow that had haunted their lives. The victim impact statements were shattering. Stories of lost innocence, broken marriages, and the constant, debilitating fear that never left them. In August 2020, Joseph James DeAngelo, stripped of all his frightening pseudonyms, was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. The cold trail of the Golden State was finally, irrevocably over. The decades of darkness had concluded, not with a dramatic manhunt, but with the quiet, persistent diligence of a few dedicated investigators and the silent language of genetics, proving that no ghost, no matter how cunning, can truly vanish forever. Don't forget to subscribe https://l/un/87yot and turn on the bell for weekly cold cases stories that stay with you long after the video ends.